Welcome back to Market on Close. It's time to talk futures, and for that I want to bring in Scott Bauer, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. Mr. Bauer, always a pleasure to see you. Let's talk some crude.
Great to be here.
You know which direction we're going for this with futures today, Scott, but let's talk crude first because oil is making moves here, and the losses have kind of extended throughout the session. So what's going on in your mind here? 3%.
This is unbelievable. It's one of those outlier moves, quite frankly. And, I don't know how much of it is really off of the EIA number, which was really an outlier number, and how much of it was a buy the rumor, sell the news on the Iran sanctions. I think it's kind of this Goldilocks scenario of both, and that's what's putting pressure here, and it's complete surprise to me. In fact, I was talking to Ben this morning and actually you yesterday, Oliver, about oil, that there's a so-called put in the market. Well, that put just got hit. This level here around 66.5 or 67. Personally, I think this is a temporary low. That being said, this is a shock to the market.
So the year's pattern has been basically, Scott, just look from the chart, now rocket science here, right? Up, but with sort of mini corrections on the way. Do you see this as still being a supply-driven correction as opposed to a market view changing on whether or not there's going to be enough sustainable demand here?
I do, and I think it's because there's a shock to the system on this EIA number, the big supply issue. I do think that is what's causing this. That being said, there is still as much geopolitical risk as there was 9 hours ago, yesterday, last week. There is still as much to be concerned about with supply coming out of Iran. So there is all that still factored into the equation here. That being said, this is a huge move to the downside here. I think actually it's a great opportunity to take advantage of it, start playing back to the upside.
Scott, well, to be clear here, so the EIA report that came out today had a draw of 1.4. Now, are you saying that wasn't big enough compared to what we saw from API, which was a pretty sizable number, like 6 million, or just in general that it dropped off from some of the massive, we saw like 11 million draw earlier in the year?
Yeah, that, and if you also look at the gasoline supply here, that's really where the big number was. So if you take in the aggregate number of crude, gasoline, you're looking at actually a 3.3 million buildup, I believe it was, rather than a drawdown. So I think that is really the shock that hit the system, the shock that hit the marketplace, and that's when we saw that real quick acceleration to the downside.
All right, yeah, and to your point there, 2.9 for gasoline versus the expected draw of 2.5 there. So quite a bit opposite from what the street wanted. All right, let's talk the other drop that's happened in the market, Bitcoin. Is there a reason for this, Scott, or is this just a continued pattern of lower highs and testing 6?
Oliver, we talk about this so much, and this last move from 8,500 down to where we are right now, 6,200, this is very troubling for me. And you know what a kind of a permabull I've been in the crypto space, in the Bitcoin space. It's really troubling to me because this, to me, is signaling the euphoria, the hysteria that we saw last year crept back into the market just on the hopes of these ETFs hopefully being passed by the SEC, or at least getting some positive reinforcement out of the SEC. So we saw all of this buying come back into the marketplace, topped 7,000, topped 8,000, topped out at 8,500. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about 10,000 again, all on the hopes of an ETF. Now we're seeing the news come out again this morning about the Van Eck ETF, where we were supposed to see a decision coming out, I believe, later this week, extended out to September 30th. There's no rhyme or reason. There are no technicals, no fundamentals in place right now. I'm seeing a lot of panic-driven buying and selling in that marketplace, and it really remains to be seen now what that real level, what that new trading level is going to be. We talked about so much retail money coming into the space here, and all of a sudden we saw 11,000 contracts trade here at the CME just a couple weeks ago. Now today it's up to 8,000 again. We're seeing it on the upside, we're seeing it on the downside, some of the capitulation. Yeah,
I think it's a really good point to bring in the volume as well. A big spike within the futures here this past month. All right, Scott Bauer, we got to leave it there though. Looking forward to continue to tracking that. A bit of a sobering look at the Bitcoin move, but well said by Mr. Bauer, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy.